This is the multi-voice text-to-speech podfic reading of Going to the Chapel by R33sesPieces, composed by Burning Aurora. Sirius is squirming next to him in the pew. They've only been here for 20 minutes, and this is a full Catholic ceremony, so they have a solid hour still ahead, and Sirius will not stop moving. Remus reaches over to rest a hand on their knee, hoping the heaviness and a tight squeeze will calm them, like a weighted blanket or a thunder shirt. But it only serves to make them squirm more, wriggling until he's pushing up their skirt and inching his hand up the inside of their leg, tan fingers stark against pale thighs, and great. Now he has a semi. He's at his colleague's wedding. They haven't even gotten through the readings yet. Sirius is sitting next to him in a tight cranberry-colored dress that makes their arse look delicious, and he's got a bloody semi. Remus wraps his right arm around Sirius and entwines the fingers of their left hands. Maybe he can hold Sirius still, and if he keeps his hands otherwise occupied, he won't think about the way the smooth skin of Sirius's upper thighs felt under his fingertips, or the lacy undergarments that inevitably accompany Sirius's dresses. But no. Now it's worse because Sirius is twitching their joined hands over his dick, working him to full hardness in the middle of his fucking coworker's wedding ceremony. That little shit.
Sirius,
he hisses in their ear, and a slow smile spreads across their face.
Yeah, Moons.
You cannot jerk me off in the pew at the wedding of someone I work with,
he whispers fiercely. Sirius disentangles their fingers and cups him firmly through his new, dark sapphire suit. They hum softly and answer just quietly enough so only Remus can hear.
Seems like you'd like me to, though.
They run their thumb over the head of his cock, now clearly visible through his trousers, making Remus arch in his seat and bite his lip, and yeah, of course Remus would like a fucking hand job if they were going to tease him like that. Who wouldn't? They pull their hand away, smirking smugly, to instead rest it on his knee. Remus spends the next 40 minutes mentally reciting the Old English introduction to Beowulf in an attempt to keep his very bossy dick in line, since every time he lets his mind wander, it follows butterflies down the path of Sirius palming his cock, and his fingers under Sirius's skirt, and how easily Sirius could just wrap their legs around his waist and let their dress slide up. And Remus wouldn't even need to take their panties off, he could just shove them aside and he's hard again. Damn it. He finally manages to get himself under control just before communion, and when they sit back to let the others in their row pass by, Sirius is shifting in their seat again. They have a light sheen of sweat on their skin with tiny beads collecting in the baby hairs along their neckline that have escaped their fancy bun.
Baby, are you okay?
He asks when he hears Sirius's breath hitch. Sirius whimpers softly and turns to Remus with wide, panicky eyes.
Moons, I may have reached a bit beyond my grasp.
Remus's brow wrinkles as he takes in the pretty picture of his partner, a high pink flush in their cheeks, lips slightly parted as they draw in quiet, panting breaths, bright, shining gray eyes with pupils blown wide, the incessant wriggling ever since they sat down.
Oh my God, you're wearing a plug, aren't you?
He hisses, and Sirius nods frantically.
Oh my fucking God, Sirius.
Seems a little sacrilegious to call me that in church, babe, true as it may be.
What the hell were you thinking?
The question trails off into a snicker, and Remus is starting to garner looks. Sirius glares at him and takes a deep breath that's clearly supposed to be steadying but sounds like a gasp.
I didn't know it'd be there with benches. What kind of bloody church doesn't put cushions on their seats?
Catholics.
Remus answers and brings a hand to his mouth to press down a hysterical giggle. What a ridiculous scenario Sirius has created for themselves. He loves them so much. Remus glances around quickly, trying to decide if they can sneak out without being noticed, or if they have to wait until the wedding is over to slip away. Shit, his department chair is 3 rows behind them. Definitely can't leave then. Hopefully she didn't notice Sirius getting a little handsy earlier. Still fighting down a laugh, he leans in until his chest is pressed against Sirius's arm so they can feel the words he softly rumbles into their ear.
So desperate for me you just couldn't wait, and now you're suffering the consequences,
Sirius shivers, breath quick and sharp through their full lips as they look at him with hazy eyes.
Won't make it through the night. Hell, probably won't make it out of this building before you're spreading yourself wide for me, begging for my dick in your ass.
Sirius makes a choke sound and nods, eyes darting around to check if anyone else overheard. Knowing them, they probably hope someone did. Sirius loves to play games like this, show him how much they want him somewhere he can't do anything about it, tease and flirt until Remus is half mad with lust, goad him until he can't hold himself back any longer, and takes them right there. Even if there is a fucking church. And they love it when Remus plays the role of primal and domineering, doling out punishments and pain to get what he wants.
Might have to make you wait all night, show you what happens when you take matters into your own hands. Have you bruised those pretty knees and choke on my cock, then make you wait. Walk around aching and wanting, not let you come for hours.
Mooney.
They breathe, and Remus smirks.
Unless you can be good for me, sit nice and still, and don't let anyone know how much you need it. Be so good and don't let them see you're gagging for it, that you'd ride me right here if I let you.
Sirius whimpers, and the woman sitting in front of them turns around to toss the pair a scathing look. Remus smiles at her politely until she faces forward again, then rolls his eyes. Sometimes people just need to mind their own fucking business. The flush on Sirius's cheeks deepens, and Remus threads their fingers together and squeezes tight, kissing their knuckles reassuringly. They manage to make it through the rest of the ceremony, Sirius crushing Remus's knuckles in their grip as they try not to writhe in their seat, and Remus completely unable to focus on anything but how uncomfortably tight the tailoring on this suit suddenly is. And finally the wedding party is leaving so they can, too. He pulls Sirius down the outside aisle, perhaps drawing a bit of attention, but Jesus Christ, he just cannot wait any longer with them looking all desperate and needy like that. Remus pulls Sirius into the men's room and locks the door behind them. There's no way he's literally getting caught with his pants down in a bloody church. As soon as the lock clicks shut, Sirius has him pressed into the door so hard it knocks the wind out of him. They're kissing him like his tongue is the sole supply of oxygen left in the universe. Their hands are tangled in his hair. Their hips have started a slow roll that has their stiff cock grinding into his thigh. He nips at their lower lip and they groan, pelvis stuttering out of its steady rhythm in an impatient search for more friction. Remus grabs their hips and holds them tightly against his own, stopping them from seeking any more pleasure. He walks them slowly backwards, still kissing Sirius deeply, then reaches his hands beneath their thighs and boosts them onto the sink. They gasp when they land, the plug pushed in deeper when their arse bounces on the countertop, and he grins as he spreads their legs wide so he can stand between them. Their dress is bunched around their hips, leaving almost nothing to the imagination, and fuck, do they look gorgeous. Remus reaches up to pull the pin, something that looks more like a weapon and less like a hair accessory, out of Sirius's bun and flings it against the counter, where it lands with a metallic clatter. Dark curls tumble freely around their shoulders, and Remus, taller for once with Sirius sitting, pulls them in for a rough, filthy kiss. He threads his fingers into their roots and pulls, and Sirius moans his name as their back bows so far their sternum is facing the ceiling. Sirius loves when it hurts. Loves to walk around with bruises littering their collarbones and wrists and thighs. Loves the physical reminders that they are desired and cherished. He bites along their jawline and down their neck, their eyes fluttering shut as they hum with pleasure.
What do you think you deserve?
Remus murmurs with his lips on their throat, sucking bruises into their neck that will be visible before they even get to the reception.
Were you good for me, do you think?
So good.
Sirius sighs, back still arched and breath catching in their chest. Remus hums skeptically and starts to lightly brush his fingers up the inside of their thighs, goose pimples erupting everywhere he touches, the trails of bumps marking his territory like borders on a map.
Claimed in the name of Remus Lupin. Held nice and still so my boss wouldn't know what a thirsty little cockslut you are. Couldn't tell you were trying to get me off right there, in front of God and everybody.
Sirius whimpers and shakes their head.
No, never. Remus, please.
Remus fights down a smile when he hears his name spill from their lips, has to bury it in their neck and bite down on their pulse to hide it. Sirius hates it when he breaks character. He smooths his hand over their hip and around their arse, slipping under the lace of their knickers and settling between their cheeks to wiggle the plug. Sirius arches into it, eyes rolling back in their head. They grip his shoulders so tightly he can feel fingernails digging in through his shirt where they've slipped their hands under his suit jacket.
Always so good, so thoughtful, getting yourself ready for me. You knew you wouldn't be able to wait to get my cock in you, didn't you? I bet you were hard through the whole ceremony. Squirming on that hard seat, stretching yourself out with this.
He gives the base a little tug and twist, and a loud moan tears out of Sirius's throat.
Waiting for me to fill you up. You were in agony, weren't you?
Sirius bites their lip and nods furiously, eyes wide and pupils blown. Remus slips his other hand up their skirt and ghosts his fingers over their hard length through delicate lace, then rolls their balls gently in one palm while he pushes on the base of the plug with the other. They rest their head on his shoulder, breathing heavily, a curtain of dark hair hiding their face while they watch where his wrist disappears between their legs.
So hot.
They murmur, voice ragged and full of wonder, and Remus grins. He presses a kiss to their temple, unable to stop himself from the small expression of tenderness. He loves them so much.
You always look so good for me, baby.
He moves his hand from Sirius's balls and slides his palm up their hard cock, the lace around their head already soaked with pre-cum. Remus brushes his thumb back and forth over their leaking slit, spreading it down their shaft, making the fabric tacky so they have all the more reason to squirm. They're rocking their hips back and forth, chasing his touch, alternating between pressure on the plug and friction on their dick. He takes his thumb into his mouth and sucks it clean, just to taste them.
Gorgeous.
Remus is achingly, painfully hard in his trousers, his cock pressing into the zipper and obviously straining the fabric. Sirius reaches for his belt, but Remus swats them away, then kisses them gently to soften the admonishment.
Haven't learned your lesson about asking permission yet, I see.
Need you, Remus. Please.
Sirius whines, high and needy, and Remus's resolve breaks. He has his cock out in seconds and wraps one arm around Sirius's waist, pulling them forward so they're rutting against each other. Remus pulls at the thin layer of lace that's the only thing keeping him from feeling Sirius skin on skin and feels it rip under his rough fingers. He shoves the torn fabric to the side and takes them both in hand, stroking them together and swiping his thumb over their tips, smearing their shafts with pre-cum. Sirius is thrusting into his tight fist with reckless abandon, chasing their orgasm as fast as they can. Remus reaches around and tugs on the plug, and they keen as it stretches them open.
Please, Mooney, need you to fuck me. Please. I need it.
They choke out, barely able to form the words through their gasps. Remus slows his hand and kisses along Sirius's jaw, then sucks a bruise below their ear.
Just can't get enough, can you? What made you so needy today,
He's still moving the plug inside them, pulling it out a little further each time, stretching out their hole then pushing it back in to brush against their prostate.
Your suit, Moons.
Sirius stutters, eyes glassy as they look Remus over.
What was I supposed to do? I'm only human.
Remus stops, then draws back to look at their face.
Are you telling me we were almost late to my colleague's wedding because you?
He claps a hand over Sirius's mouth to muffle the cry that rips out of their throat when Remus pulls the plug out to its widest point.
Saw me in a new suit and were busy prepping.
He pushes it in, deeper than it has been, grinding against their prostate until Sirius is shuddering under his hands.
So I could fuck you in a church lav.
He pulls on the base until the widest part is stretching Sirius's rim and keeps it there, moving it in small circles to stretch them further still while pinning Sirius with an incredulous glare.
No.
Sirius pants, holding completely still, fighting their need to move, to fuck themselves back on the plug, to take what Remus is so stubbornly refusing to give them.
I was prepping for you to fuck me in the lav at the reception. You're the one who decided to fuck me at the church. But then, you've always been an overachiever.
Oh, you little shit.
Remus growls, fighting down a laugh because Sirius just can't help themselves, they have to run their mouth. Remus pulls the plug out and slings it onto the counter, into the sink. He doesn't know where it goes, it doesn't fucking matter. Sirius's dress is rucked up around their waist, Remus has 3 fingers buried in their arse, and Sirius is yelping at the sudden intrusion. Remus scissors his fingers apart, stretching their hole open further and contemplating the utility of spit as lube when Sirius gropes for their clutch, pops open the clasp, and flips a small foil packet into Remus's chest. He lets out a shout of laughter because, really, he should have known, and rips open the perforated top. He slicks himself up and pulls Sirius's hips forward so their lower back is supported by the edge of the countertop, and their legs are wrapped around his still fully clothed waist. Sirius braces their hands behind them, and Remus seats himself fully in one smooth thrust. Sirius tips their head back and keens, relieved to finally have what they've been needing for what feels like hours, and Remus snaps his hips at a brutal pace. Sirius's cock is bouncing and leaking more with every stroke, and Remus just needs to taste them. He leans forward and takes their tip in his mouth, salty and heavy on his tongue. Sirius is completely blissed out, breath punching out in sharp bursts as they move between the heat of his mouth and the pressure of his cock on their prostate. Remus can tell they're getting close from the hitch in their breath and the way they're babbling his name, so he pulls off with an obscene smacking noise and lifts them onto the counter with their legs dangling. Sirius makes an affronted noise at the loss of sensation, and Remus kisses it out of their mouth, Sirius able to taste themselves on his tongue. He stands Sirius on their own 2 feet, then turns them around and pushes them flat across the vanity. He lines himself up and presses back inside, tightly gripping Sirius's hip as he pulls them back on his cock. Remus buries a hand in Sirius's hair, pulling sharply so their head bows back and they're directly facing the mirror. Sirius's eyes roll back at the sensation, and Remus bends forward so his chest is pressed to their back. He nips at their neck and groans in their ear.
Look at me, baby. I want to see you.
Sirius's eyes flutter open and their gazes meet, and Remus nearly comes on the spot. They look beautiful, eyes hazy and fucked out, hair a mess, dark red marks to match their dress blossoming across their neck and exposed collarbone. They look debauched and untamed, but Remus knows better. They have been claimed. They are thoroughly and completely his. Sirius reaches a hand back to grab Remus's hips, pull him faster, harder, deeper, and Remus allows them to set the pace. He takes Sirius's hot, heavy cock in hand and lets them thrust into his tight fist, and in a matter of seconds, they're spilling over into his palm and clenching around him as they cry out. Remus watches them come, sees the way their wet lips form his name, the way their eyelids squeeze shut as they give up the fight to maintain eye contact, the shudders that start in the bottom of their spine and roll across their entire body. He follows them over the edge, a ragged
Sirius,
falling from his tongue, and he collapses forward onto their back, nosing at their hair and searching for the feel of soft skin against his lips. He presses a kiss to the nape of their neck and hums happily. Sirius shifts beneath him, standing him up and wiping his hands off on a paper towel before wrapping their arms around him. They embrace for only a few seconds before Sirius starts to snicker.
What?
Remus mumbles into their neck, mind moving at a speed that makes it feel like it's wading through honey.
Just.
Sirius cuts themselves off as they try to stifle their laughter, only managing to change it into a choking gasp.
We have a whole evening of wedding left, and
A wheezy, strangled giggle.
I am dripping with cum and
Their usual loud, barking laugh escapes.
you absolutely shredded my underwear.
They succumb to their laughter at the sheepish look on Remus's face.
I might have gotten a bit carried away,
He mutters, a flush creeping up his cheeks, and Sirius bursts into another fit of barely suppressed snickering.
Baby, I am going to have to throw my knickers in the bin in a church loo because my boyfriend went a little feral and ripped them to pieces.
Well, when you say it like that, it doesn't sound sexy at all, it just sounds ridiculous.
Remus pouts as a still giggling Sirius shakes their head.
No, moonshine. Very sexy. Absolutely boner-inducing, or it would be if I hadn't just been fucked within an inch of my life.
Sirius takes his face in their palms and smacks a wet kiss on his lips.
But you're going to have to come up with a solution to stop me from leaking your spunk all over the reception hall.
Remus grabs some loo roll and gently cleans Sirius up, casting his eyes around until they catch on something in the corner of the vanity. He glances up at Sirius and raises a mischievous brow.
Oh, you're kidding.
Sirius's eyes go wide as Remus reaches for the plug and cleans it off.
That's how we wound up in this predicament in the first place.
Remus hums thoughtfully as he reaches for the packet of lube and lightly slicks up the plug.
And whose idea was that, I wonder?
It's not my fault. It was you and that bloody suit. You know how you look.
Sirius complains as they grab their hairpin and twist their curls back into a low bun. Remus hums knowingly as he kneels behind them, lavishing their lower back and delectable arse cheeks with slow, wet kisses until the sharp prongs are safely embedded back in Sirius's hair.
I'm just saying, baby. You seemed to enjoy it enough the first time around. Might want to keep our options open. We could always do it again.
Remus nudges the blunt head of the plug against their entrance, and looks up to meet their eyes, not pushing in until they bite their lip and nod. He feels them shiver as it settles, and he playfully nips at their arse cheek before he stands. Once he's on his feet, Sirius pulls him in for a languid, filthy kiss, then taps his cheek affectionately as they break it off. They turn to grab their clutch off the vanity, straighten Remus's tie for him, and unlock the door.
I wonder what's for dinner. Do you remember what you RSVP'd for?
Remus smirks at them.
And here I thought you'd feel plentiful already.
Sirius barks a loud laugh and smacks him on his arse as he passes by, both of them joyful and giddy as they ignore the judgmental glares from the few remaining guests they pass on their way to the parking lot. Finite. Thanks for listening to this text-to-speech podfic composed by Burning Aurora.